Hello, welcome to episode 18 of Conversations with a Martial Artist. My guest today is Keith Ellis. He's a super experienced guy, primarily now teaching grappling. However, he has a wealth of experience across loads of different disciplines. He's been a professional MMA fighter for a number of years. We go into some of his background, but he's also done a load of boxing, kickboxing, MMA, all sorts. So really experienced guy, and has loads of accolades of his own. He now runs Windsor Maidenhead Submission Grappling, a fantastic little class there. He teaches at Carlson Gracie Farnborough. He got a black belt there under Carlson Gracie. Really experienced guy, lots of wisdoms and insights. I hope you enjoy it. Cool. Well, Keith, thank you for having me down here again. It's good to see you again. It was a cool little class. I caught the end of it. Obviously, some of you guys, you'll get on very well. I like having a little catch up at the end as well. And piss about with some new bits as well, which is always good fun. That's right, good atmosphere. So I think probably the easiest way to start is maybe if you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background, because I know primarily your background's MMA, but I did a bit of digging for once in my life, and you've done quite a lot.
Well, it depends how long you want to go back, really.
hit us with the full whack.
Oh gosh, going back before MMA, then I suppose from like late teens and what have you. So I've always competed, but back then it was in powerlifting.
Okay.
So I competed in powerlifting actually from age of like 17, 18 to 26. Up to like international level, got like British, European and world titles at powerlifting, till I was about 26, I think it was. And then felt I got pretty much as far as I could do in that, tried sort of moving over to some strongman events and what have you, and was just plagued by injuries after injuries and what have you. Tore one of my biceps, we're both torn now. So,
Great.
So yeah, I have no biceps. So tried to do that, was plagued by injuries and what have you, and then it just happened. Like I had an old friend that I used to work with, and he was into MMA, and I was a lot heavier at the time. I was probably around 110 kilos, and he needed a few big guys just to grapple with and what have you. So I just fell into it that way, really. Started training with him, and then he pulled out of the fight, and I'd been training with him for about 3 months, and he said, "You fancy just?" He had to pull out because of injury, and he goes, "You fancy just taking my place?" And naively, I said, "All right." Then I didn't have a fucking.
Was that an Abbey fight?
No, it was a pro fight up in Newcastle, in an 8-man heavyweight tournament.
Oh god,
I mean, it was ridiculous. It was just completely naive and what have you. But flukily won the fight, and what have you. And then just carried on from there, really, sort of thing. But back then it was different. You didn't have really. Wasn't much amateur fights. It was like you either fought and you fought pro. There was very little amateur and semi-professional back then.
Right, so it's not like a progression. You literally just dive in. Do you want to earn some money this weekend?
It was pretty much that. Yeah, it was. So yeah, obviously, then realised what like fighting was all about from there, and then realised you've got to learn, all the individual areas.
Yeah. So
predominantly started doing a lot of boxing and then jiu-jitsu. Still with the club that I train jiu-jitsu at now, Carlson Gracie Farnborough.
Yeah.
And then just progressed through there, really. Had more fights. I think had probably, I don't know, it's about 15, 16 pro fights. And then sort of in between that, over the years, competed in jiu-jitsu tournaments, a couple of freestyle wrestling tournaments. We had about 15, 16 boxing fights. 1K1 fight, did the WACO British Championships, above waist kickboxing.
Yeah.
Did that as well. So just sort of like really try to learn all the individual sports and compete in all of them, sort of thing, to bring it back together. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So that's something, because I had a little look at your profile and things on the website and stuff like that, and there's a mention of that, but I didn't realise how many different disciplines that you kind of covered there.
Yeah.
There's a lot to that, and they're all very different, like, especially the above the waist kickboxing and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was very much so. I think I only did the WACO like British Championships once for that. I mean, I prefer like the K1 style sort of thing, or Thai sort of thing. But it was just sort of experience at the time, really. I was just trying to compete as much as I could and get the experience, really.
Yeah, I love that.
Which, it worked. I won it as well, sort of thing. So I must have done all right.
Yeah. Can't be that bad.
Yeah. And then I think I had my last pro fight. It was just before lockdown. So when did we go into lockdown? 2020. Yeah, something like that. On Fusion, which was we were actually there last night because Sam.
I was going to say they were at Epsom last night.
Yeah, that's Fusion there. So Sam, who trains with me, he had a grappling belt on there, and Rory, who I train with at Carlson in Farnborough, he was on it there as well. So I had my last MMA fight there about 2020. Obviously, we went into lockdown and what have you, and then sort of coming out of it, I started up, teaching over. We were originally in Windsor at 5-star then. So I started up a grappling class a couple of times a week, and then that's just grown sort of thing. And I think now it's just got to the point where I still enjoy competing, but I couldn't dedicate the time for MMA that I'd need to now with teaching full time and just getting older, to be honest with you.
Yeah, fair enough.
In my 40s now, and like when you got to train with some of the like young MMA fighters in their early 20s, they just got a gas tank. It never stops. It just keeps going on for days and days. And it's, unfortunately, when you're young, you think, it's bullshit about when you get old. You're going to struggle more, but you do.
Yeah,
you definitely do. And injuries, play a part of it.
Yeah, of course.
As well. So, I wouldn't go back to MMA, but I coached a few guys, obviously, that fight MMA, and then doing the grappling tournaments.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you were competing still pretty high level. You were at ADCC trials,
I've been out to the last European ADCC trials. Won the one a year ago, and then the last one I went to. Bit of controversy, because I got disqualified for a heel hook, which I believe was legal. But, it's a bit of a. There's a bit of a shit show there, really. Yeah,
I was going to ask you about that, because my understanding, obviously I'm not a black belt by any means, but I thought a black belt is basically anything goes, is it not?
Exactly, and they seem to have, even when you look online now, they seem to have, like, for ADCC, they seem to have 2 rule sets. When you're over 30, you go Masters, and a lot of the rule sets still say Masters is the same rule set as the open categories. The heel hooks pretty much every submission is legal.
Yeah.
But then there's one site where you go down into the small right end, and it says Masters will be under the rule set of something like advanced or intermediate, so heel hooks are not allowed.
Oh.
But in saying that, even on the day, there was other competitors, Masters, winning via heel hooks.
Yeah.
Earlier in the day, and there was even judges and referees that told me this. It is what it is, isn't it, sort of thing. So,
I guess there's not much you can do now.
No. I questioned it. I got an email from him, basically apologising and what have you, and saying about like entry for next competition and what have you, which is fair enough, but. Really, it's like all the time that goes into it, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. I guess you must be training quite hard for it, because it's quite a serious event for anyone that doesn't know. For ADCC, the big one, and then also the trials themselves are pretty serious competition.
Of course, a lot of the biggest and best names in the world that you'll see out there at European trials.
Yeah,
because even a lot of the Americans and what have you, they probably have like their half or quarter German or Spanish or something, so they manage to come over and do European trials.
Is that how they do it? So you have to demonstrate.
You have to have a European passport. But a lot of the Americans tend to have a European passport as well, because they've got relatives.
Your great granddad was Irish.
Exactly, that sort of thing. Yeah. So you get a lot of them come over as well. You see.
Right. Okay. And how was competing on ADCC? I mean, it's a pretty big event in terms of grappling.
Yeah.
Was that the first time you've gone, or you've gone a few years before?
So that was the second time. This time. I think all competitions, you get nervous and what have you. I mean, it's a well-run competition, very high standard. But I think just like any other competition, you get your nerves, anxieties and what have you. But I think that's just normal. I don't think you ever really get rid of that.
It's always interesting when people like you say that, because it's so weird, because I've done very few. I've done like 5 fights or something like that, and I am shitting it before most of them.
Yeah, you do, yeah.
And I'm like, surely it's going to get better, like
Yeah.
on the next one. But no. And it's interesting to hear someone with like your experience say, you know, do you still get that same level of nerves regardless of competition?
Yeah, and I think you do. I just think you become better at dealing with it.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean? I think it's always still there. I think you learn ways of dealing with it, basically.
Do you find it changes when you're like grappling versus MMA? Like, is there anything that makes you a bit more concerned, or
not for me, to be honest with you?
Okay.
Not really. It's the same. You go through whatever the discipline is. You go through all the doubts in your mind. If it's boxing, what happens if I get knocked out? If this happens, if it's grappling, jiu-jitsu, what if I get caught in a heel hook and my knee gets broken or whatever? And it's all the same sort of thing. You always picture and imagine the worst scenario. I think most people do.
Yeah, for sure.
You do. You can't help it, sort of thing. But yeah, it's just like I say, learning ways of dealing with it, sort of thing, and sort of like trying to turn it into a positive and whatever. But also knowing, like, after all these years, sort of thing, that it's normal. You know what I mean?
Do you find the more you compete, the more like confidence you have going into it, or is there always that underlying like?
Yeah, I'd say. I think confidence mainly comes from your training, really. You know your ability. I mean, if you're getting smashed in training by people that are a lower belt of you, it's going to impact your confidence, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if you're training with high level guys on a regular basis and you're keeping up with them, it does. I think that's where most of your confidence comes from. I mean, I know a lot sort of said about like sports psychology and what have you and things like that, but I don't think it matters what you could do with a sports psychologist. If you're shit in training, they're not going to make you.
Yeah, you're not going to suddenly magically flip a switch, is it?
Yeah. A psychologist isn't going to make any difference to that. You know, your performance is going to be relative to what you do in training.
Yeah, 100%. And I think Danaher says quite a lot of the same things, doesn't he? He talks about that all the time. Is like your confidence comes just from reps and reps and reps and practice and drilling and knowing that you are good at doing it in the hardest environments. Obviously, they train a pretty top-notch team.
That's right. It is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm exactly the same for me. Yeah, and so I think that's why as well you've got to find decent, some of the best guys to train with, sort of thing, because that will improve your confidence.
And have you kind of hopped around for training? So like when you're training for different styles, do you train out of different gyms? Do you change much, or has it always kind of been the same? Also, you're still at the same grappling?
Yeah. I've been all over the place, to be honest with you. So there's a few boxing gyms, like Aldershot Way, ARD. When I was boxing, I also used to go over to Reading ABC, basically for different sparring again, really, wherever I go. Even now for jiu-jitsu, I'll try and go to different clubs every so often, or if I go away on holiday or something like that, I'll go visit. Yeah, and that's why, like, even here, I invite anyone to come down here. It's not like, I think jiu-jitsu's changing a little bit, but I think there's still clubs where it's like, oh, you've got to be a full-on member to train here. They don't accept people like just turning up, sort of thing, to train. Where here, I try and keep it as like a open door policy, sort of thing. Anyone can come and train here, sort of thing.
Yeah, I like that.
Because it's good for everyone, I think, then.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And we have a crossover. I get a few guys that train with me in Farnborough. They come over here, and it's good training for everyone.
Ah, cool. And you're coaching in Farnborough as well, are you?
Yeah. So I coach the MMA there, and then a little bit of no gi and a gi class, actually. Lunchtime classes there.
Ah, cool. And is your class here, is that mainly no gi stuff?
It is all no gi.
Yeah, because I know it's a submission grappling.
That's right. Yeah. So it might get a little bit frowned on because there's no gi, but I think it's the way the sport's going.
Yeah.
Really, maybe if we continue growing, I might put a gi class on down the line. But especially with like a lot of the younger athletes coming up, they're looking up to the big names in the sport, and it's all in no gi, or they're attracted to MMA. And, the gi doesn't really translate over to MMA as much as no gi.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's where the money is, where the big competition is in the no gi, like you say, the ADCCs, the Polaris, those sort of competitions, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we've had that conversation on the podcast before with some of the other like grapplers on it. And yeah, I mean, people have their preferences, but Nogi is definitely, that's the one that's leading the headway for the growth of jiu-jitsu. And it is much more exciting as well. I mean, they've started putting them on like one championship and stuff like that.
Exactly.
It's there, isn't it?
Yep.
And you've got recognisable names now.
Yeah. I think you talked with Cole, didn't you, about one championship?
Yeah, we did.
I think that's a great idea what they've done, having a mix of everything.
Yeah, I love that.
It attracts different audience, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. That's well up my street. I love to watch a bit of everything, and especially I guess for you as well, having fought so many different disciplines. It must be interesting to see like the kickboxing versus Muay Thai versus MMA, whatever.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a nice variation they have.
And do you still practice much striking stuff? Obviously, you're coaching it a little bit, but you kind of actively still doing that, or is it mainly grappling now?
Mainly grappling, but I'll still jump in for some boxing sparring and what have you, or MMA sparring every now and then. Yeah, because I still enjoy it and what have you. And it's nice. I think I'm still learning as well, sort of thing. So you never stop learning, do you? Really?
Well, that's a good attitude.
You don't, do you? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, grappling I do every day, 7 days a week, sort of thing. And then just jump in, a few rounds of sparring and what have you. Occasional pad work.
Sure,
myself, but predominantly it's grappling.
Grappling heavy for you now. Yeah, that's fair enough. And I mean, because obviously your background's a little interesting, the fact that you never really like set out to go into martial arts.
No.
And how old did you say you were when you started martial arts? Because you did powerlifting until 26.
Yeah. I dabbled a tiny bit, like when I was probably about 11, 12, 13, in a little bit of boxing. Camberley, ABC, this is many years ago. And then judo a little bit as well.
Okay.
But neither for like really consistent for a long period of time, sort of thing. Just sort of learnt some of the basics and what have you. And then like I say, later teens went into powerlifting and what have you. And then come back. I think it was like at 26. I think it was 26. Yeah, about 15 years ago.
Fair enough. And so that's relatively late to start like the MMA thing, isn't it? Because that was something I was going to ask you about. Do you think there's like a prime age or like a prime time to get into it and start competing?
Well, I think now is just the youngsters are starting so young, aren't they? I mean, I know with like some of even the kids MMA, I know they don't necessarily have head contact, but you watch the standard of kids MMA, if you see it, and like IMAF, if you've seen any of that, the amateurs and what have you, and the standard is so high now. Yeah, it's insane. I say like the amateurs is just as high, if not higher, than the pro standard that I started at, if that makes sense. Yeah. But I just think it's a better way that they're doing it now. They're building them up slowly, sort of thing. It's not just you get thrown in, everything goes and what have you, and just
fingers crossed.
Yeah, basically that's what it was. Yeah, but yeah, definitely the amateur scene's very good, and a lot higher, a good high standard.
So, do you think it's worth starting to compete when you're a bit younger?
Yeah, I definitely. Like I've got obviously kids classes here and what have you. And I think if they're like some of them are interested in MMA, but I say to them at least get a good foundation of one or two areas first, sort of thing. Okay. I'm going to be a bit biased, but I'd also say that obviously wrestling and jiu-jitsu is a huge aspect.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you can get to like a decent standard of that as a kid, sort of thing, because it doesn't matter whoever you are, it takes years to get good.
Yeah, that's it.
You're looking at least sort of like the 10 years or so consistency, discipline to be at a high level or high standard.
Yeah, and I guess with MMA especially, you've got so many different disciplines going into it that's a hard old slog.
It is, yeah. I suppose some might argue what's better, whether they specialise in one discipline and get very good at that, or whether they do. I know some classes do just basic MMA classes, and then they learn a little bit of everything, sort of thing. Whether in the long run, what one's better, you probably argue it. But I suppose if you look at some of the best MMA fighters now, a lot of them, or most of them, will have a specific background in something, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, or a kickboxing or Thai background.
Yeah, that's it. I think I was having this conversation on one of the earlier podcasts before, where actually that tends to be the best way is you have a specialist that really has something hardwired, like ingrained in them as their background. And then they've also done a bit of all the other elements. So if you're a striker, then you've got that decade of kickboxing or whatever it is hardwired into you, but you've learned to wrestle.
That's right, yeah.
When you get rocked or you get taken down or whatever, that's where you start to get the that side of it come out naturally.
Yeah, certainly, yeah. So I think, that's what, like I said, maybe a bit biased, but I think, if kids can get a real good understanding and, develop their wrestling and their groundwork, it's going to hold them in good stead going forward if they want to go into MMA, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the grappling has such a huge impact on everything.
Yeah.
Like I'd never really, I've always pissed around with striking arts, never super seriously until kind of a couple of years ago. Yeah. And the introduction of the wrestling just rocked my fucking world. I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, we understand. Yeah, it does change things, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think, it surprises people. I think a lot of us men, maybe as part of their ego, they just presume that they can fight.
Yeah, that's it.
And then they come up against someone who can actually fight, and they realise how shit they are.
Yeah, you're like a baby.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
You're like totally helpless.
Yes,
that's how I felt the first time. I went to a beginners MMA thing. Yeah, and the striking, I'm like, okay, it's a bit different to what I know, but like I get it. I can figure it out. It feels all right. And we started grappling, and I'm just like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, just lost.
Yeah, that's it. And then literally the next day, I went and signed up for a jiu-jitsu club. I was like, I got to figure that shit out.
I think people either run away from it because they're too sort of intimidated by it or whatever, or they're like, oh shit, I've got to learn this. Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And I mean, from your perspective, obviously, like you say, you're fairly biased towards the wrestling and the grappling things, but you've done a huge amount of striking arts as well. Yeah. Obviously, you said you've done a bit of, well, pretty much everything. Above the waist kickboxing, boxing, K1s, and did you say Muay Thai as well?
That's the only thing that I haven't actually competed in, Muay Thai. Yeah.
Well, new project.
You never know. Yeah, you never know. Yeah. Oh yeah, I love striking. Yeah. As well. Don't get me wrong, sort of thing. Yeah. And obviously I teach for boxing classes here. Yeah. I love boxing. I think it's a very traditional sport, isn't it? Sort of thing.
100%.
I still follow it. What have you? Like I say, maybe biased towards wrestling and what have you for MMA, but I still like striking just as much, and I still an avid fan of it and watch it.
Does your striking change much when you're training for different types of competition?
Yeah, it will do. Yeah, certainly. As in, like, whether it's like MMA or boxing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, obviously the stance has to be adjusted each time for whether it's obviously. Well, I suppose some people can stand side on, and you've got like Michael Venom Page. He's the UFC debut, didn't he? He's very obviously he's bladed stance, very side on sort of thing. Where if you're against a traditional Thai, they'd say you can't stand like that.
Yeah,
you get leg sort of thing. So I suppose you can adjust things depending on your strength, sort of thing, can't you? But for me, it would change kickboxing compared to my boxing stance, compared to my MMA stance. They'll all be slightly different.
And did you find, were you competing these sort of at the same time, or did you go through like a run of
No, pretty much at the same time. Okay. I just, looked to compete regular, so whatever I could organise or would come up every couple of months.
Right, you just dive in.
Jump on that, yeah.
And was that then hard to adjust your training for that? Because you might be one weekend you're boxing, and then in 3 weeks' time you've got MMA. And
a little bit. I just, obviously change my training to, be more specific to the discipline, and that would be the thing that I predominantly spar in.
Right.
If I was boxing, then I'd predominantly be sparring like 3 times a week boxing, and I wouldn't worry too much about grappling or wrestling, sparring sort of thing.
Sure,
still do drills and what have you, but there's only so much the body can take, isn't there? If you're like hard sparring every single day, it just burns you out.
Yeah, you're fucked.
So even if you're like training if you're sparring boxing 3 times a week, and then you expect to be wrestling hard 3 times a week, it's just going to train your body.
Yeah.
You've got to have those different like intensity levels, haven't you, of your training.
Yeah, I suppose you got to be very careful, especially a man with zero biceps. I mean, you've got to look after your body as best you can, mate.
That's right. Yeah.
And speaking of, did you find that the kind of powerlifting and strongman stuff helped you initially when you first went into that, or was it completely?
Probably helps you for about a minute of a fight. Isn't it? It's reality, isn't it?
Yeah,
because you have that peak strength, but that soon goes, doesn't it? You get tired, and muscle takes up oxygen, doesn't it? So you fatigue quicker. So yeah, it may be for short periods of time, but I wouldn't say, at first you have smaller, fitter guys, run rings around you.
Right.
They will do. Because they know if after a couple of minutes you're going to gas out.
Yeah, of course.
And it is, hence the reason why over time my weight drastically dropped.
Right, okay. So what weight were you generally competing at, or did it change based
for
on
MMA? 80. Well, I did when I first started, obviously, because I just jumped in after a couple of months. Yeah. So I was like 108, 110 kilos, but then gradually went down. The lightest I competed at was 80 kilos, but I felt shit at that.
What's that, like middle?
No, it was like a catch weight, so it was between middle and welterweight. Yeah, that was a catch weight. I felt shit at it. On the day, I didn't want to fight. I was just no energy or anything. What have you? I lost that fight. And so then, found like a middle ground at 84 kilos, which was middleweight sort of thing.
Okay.
But now I walk around, I think it's about 92, 93 kilos.
Right. And is that where you compete for grappling?
Yeah.
Do you do much with the weight cutting for grappling, or?
For the ADCC, I'm a little bit light, so because the ADCC brackets are quite big. They go from like 88 kilos to 99 kilos, which is quite a big. 11 kilos is quite a big bracket.
Yeah, you don't want to be the 88 guy.
Yeah, and I'm just round about in the middle. So I'm trying and put on a few pounds to get up to sort of like 90, 96 or so, ready for next time sort of thing.
Okay.
Just because I don't want to diet anymore. Can't be asked for dieting, to be honest with you. It's true, though.
I'm with you, mate.
There's only so many years you can be asked for dieting, and then, unless someone's paying you big money to diet, I can't be fucking asked with it.
No, I'm with you. That's easily the worst part. Again, I've done like 5 very low level fights.
Yeah.
And just dieting for that, I'm like, I can't be bothered with this.
Yeah. No. The days of like dieting and then sitting in a sauna for hours to make weight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shit. No, I wouldn't. I'm not going to go through that again.
Did you have much weight to cut generally? Were you a big weight cutter?
I used to get to about 89 on sort of like about the Tuesday. If I was fighting on a Saturday, I used to be about 89 on the Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And then that last few days cut about 5 kilos. Yeah, the last sort of like 3.5, 4 would be like the day before.
Right.
I'd cut and then weigh in, and then most of it goes back on sort of thing. But I suppose it's debatable how much it affects your performance.
Yeah, that's what I've always wondered. And in fact,
there's only so much that you can cut, and and it's going to be detrimental to your performance, isn't it?
And like you say, I guess the weight classes make such a big difference. If you're weight cutting all the way down to that smaller 80 or whatever,
or 80 for MMA,
that must obviously, like you say, if you're feeling shit for it, there's got to be that prime time. Did you have to play with your weight much to figure out where was that sweet spot for you?
Yeah, I did. That's why I gradually come down and what have you, and then sort of we looked to take it as far as we could, sort of thing. Got to that 80, realised that's too low. It's not realistic as well, sort of thing. It just takes over your whole life.
Sure.
And you feel, what's the point of it?
Yeah.
Like I say, unless you're being paid big money for the sake of being paid a few £100 to feel shit all the time.
Yeah.
Weight cut and then not want to fight on a day because you've got no motivation or anything.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
So it's just no point in it, is it? I mean, end of the day, I'm going to do this because we enjoy it.
Yeah. It's like a hobby. It's fun. It's It is funny when you get into the kind of professional or more competitive world. Yeah. You do lose sight of that really easily because most dudes on the earth aren't going to be the UFC champ.
No, that's right. Yeah.
But people take it so serious, and you're like, actually, I first got into it just because I kind of liked Muay Thai or whatever.
Yeah. But then you get carried away.
That's it.
It comes to be an end all, and then you think, the world revolves around your fight or your competition, where the world really don't give a shit.
Yeah,
it's not going to make any difference, is it?
No, you wake up on that Sunday, nothing's changed.
Exactly.
Really.
Apart from a few friends and family that know what's happened, and even them, whether you win or lose, they don't really it's not going to change their opinion of you.
No,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it can take quite a few years to actually realise that. Can't it? How stupid it is, yeah. And that's what I say to other people, like about competing and what have you, because I think a lot of people have that like anxiety and not sure, can I compete? Am I ready? And what have you? And I said, just go and do it. It doesn't matter. It's a great experience. You'll learn so much from it. And it honestly doesn't matter if you win or lose.
Yeah. That's it. The reality of it is no one gives a shit, really. You'll be all right.
And if you want to get as good as you can, you've got to go and compete and test yourself. You know, and if you're training, you will do well. You might get some losses, but you'll get wins as well. 100%, yeah.
And how soon do you recommend people start competing, generally speaking?
For grappling, we're definitely, obviously for grappling, because you've got different categories, you can enter as white belt, you know, the belt that you're under. Then I'd say if you've got like 6 months of training under your belt, then go and do your first competition. So I think even like the first couple of competitions is just finding your feet sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing of going there on the day, getting weighed in, you're in a huge hall with hundreds of people and what have you, still dealing with your own emotions and your adrenaline and everything like that.
Yeah.
So I think the first couple of competitions was just like go and find your feet sort of thing, just feel what it's all about really.
Just give it
Don't overthink it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And what about sort of striking stuff then?
Yeah. Strike, it depends what level you're looking at. I mean, for striking, I'd say obviously you've got like interclubs and what have you. Again, similar sort of thing, providing people are doing fair matchups. If they're doing interclubs and you've got someone else with 6 months experience, then that's fine. Definitely,
crack on.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just about having fair matchups and not being stitched up. You know, I wouldn't send someone to go and do an interclub with 6 months experience and then expect them to go up against someone who's been doing it for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, of course.
It's just wrong, isn't it? And I suppose in some of the sports you still see mismatches.
Oh yeah,
even
there are
like
wild matchups.
Lower level in local MMA shows, you see terrible matchups.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And what have you. But I think that's part of a coach, what a coach would be looking out for, really.
Sure.
I mean, I wouldn't send someone to do an MMA fight, you know, without knowing their opponent.
Right,
and doing research on them.
Okay.
It's only a sensible thing to do, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's fair. I guess MMA and stuff. The striking element I've always wondered about, because I'm all for people just putting themselves out there, have a go at the experience. But the striking element, there's more of that inherent, like, actually things can go real pear-shaped for you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But I guess you're absolutely right. The interclubs and things like that. Most of them, I mean, you do see some wild interclub matchups as well. No, some of them are brutal.
When we did one at the old Monkey at 5-star, and we did some K1 and boxing bouts, and there's a few guys come from other gyms and what have you, and it just turned into a war, literally, sort of thing, and several times I had to be calm down. It's an interclub, you just want a bit of experience and what have you. But again, it's like I think they build it up so much in their head. Yeah. It's this huge thing.
It's your debut fight.
Yeah, and they're going out and they're so like blinkered. By it, and they just see it as this all-out fight and what have you. Yeah. But then that's again like dealing with the emotions and what have you.
Yeah, I guess that's part of it as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's quite amusing sometimes as well.
It is, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's very entertaining, yeah.
These guys just absolutely seeing red, going for it.
The entertainment value's there,
yeah. And sorry, I got a little off topic, but I wanted to ask you a bit more about the weight cutting. I've always been curious, especially from someone who does it from a professional perspective as well. Would you walk me through kind of how a weight cut looks? Are you doing it super gradually over like a long period of time, or do you tend to do? I know you said you dropped 4 or 5 kilos in that last week.
That's right. Yeah. It would be generally for about 6 to 8 weeks before it would be for me. Gradually cutting back. It's a shit diet, to be honest with you. It's like really cutting back your carbohydrates.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, gradually cut them back to, and it's hard to sort of like monitor my weight a couple of times a week.
Yeah.
Obviously, if I'm losing weight very quickly, then I'll increase my food a little bit.
Okay.
You know, because obviously it's still important that you've got to train hard up to the fight, but if you're weight cutting so much, obviously you can't train hard. It's very difficult.
Yeah, right. Fine.
See?
I guess find
So
that
I think
balance.
it's getting that fine line really. But yeah, it'd be, and just little things like eating most of your carbohydrates earlier in the day, sort of thing. So you've got fuel for your fuel for your training sessions.
Yeah.
And then just gradually cutting it back, and then it'd be like I'd say, those last few days really limited to like pretty much no carbs, water loading.
Right.
I'm trying to think what it was now. So a certain amount, had it all written down, a certain amount of litres that you'd drink per day, and then it would gradually drop back, and then the last sort of like 24 hours before weigh-in, you'd only have like 500 mils of water to drink, and that would include like doing your sauna or hot baths and what have you, and that was a shit time.
Right, yeah. So that's it. That last 24 hours where you've got minimal water and you're just sweating it all out. Is the goal, is it?
Yeah, because obviously you do feel shit.
Yeah.
It's a horrible feeling. Yeah, when you're already depleted, no carbohydrates, you take no water away, you're fatigued from weeks of training and what have you. Yeah, it's a horrible feeling.
Yeah, that is rough. I've never actually braved it properly myself. But and so the water loading, are you literally just drinking X amount of water that you have to do? Are you eating much as well, or it's just water?
No, the water load. So I'd still be eating, but again, gradually, it'd be very little. Yeah, carbohydrates. Most of the carbs would come from vegetables, really.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be boring stuff like chicken and veg, fish and veg, that sort of thing for most meals, really. And then water load over a couple of days, and then cutting the water right back again.
And that last
That's right. Yeah. And usually, if you time it right, then it works out fine. Yeah. But then there's other times where I know I've needed to weigh in at 84, and then I've gone too far, and I've woke up the next morning at like 82.
Oh, right.
So, which obviously is dropping a bit too much, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think it takes time playing around with it. I suppose everybody's going to respond slightly different.
Yeah, I guess you're different body. Does it take you a while to figure out how it worked for you? Like, because there's obviously different strategies you can take.
Yeah, and I think some some say they prefer sauna, some like hot baths. Different ways of sweating it out, sort of thing. I used to hate hot baths, so I used to do saunas instead. But then some say that saunas aren't as good for you because I think it's a dry heat or something. So that's what I do, sort of like mainly, like I'd say, sauna in like the day before. Go in, it'd be like sauna for 20 minutes, come out, cool down, go back in and out, sort of thing like that, really.
And that was just like chilling in the sauna, or you see a lot of people like working out in
No, I just wouldn't have any energy to
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't know how they do it when you see like videos of people, they're in the sauna with a sweatsuit on and fucking shadow box and something. It's like, how are you do that? I was like, I feel like I'm dead in there. I just want to cry.
But you can't because of the dehydration.
That's right. Yeah, you can't. Yeah,
might help lose a few more, a little bit more fluid, I guess.
Yeah,
you never know.
Yeah.
Okay, that's miserable. And so, did you have like a guiding coach as well for that was helping you learn that process and kind of helping you with that?
Yeah, mainly for when it comes to like the weight cutting back then. So back then we were like a team called NFM in Windsor.
Okay.
Which was predominantly set up by Dean Ammersinger. I don't know if you know or have heard of Dean. He's over now coaching at the UFC Institute in China.
Yes. Sorry, this is the same guy I was talking to Harry about. Harry used to train with him, I think,
that's right. Yeah. That's where, obviously going back many years, we all sort of know each other from. From training through NFM then. And obviously Dean was very knowledgeable when it comes to the weight cutting.
Sure.
And so he gave me the plan basically that then I basically stuck to for a number of years before that, because I was doing heavier before then. It wasn't so important, but
sure.
When I was training with him and under him, that's when we started going down to the 80 kilos and whatnot.
Right. Okay, and taking a bit more serious.
Here's helping with the weight cuts. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you've trained with some other big names as well. I read on your thing. You went out to AKA.
That's right. Yeah.
What's that like
out there? That was really good. When at AKA, it was there's a lot of Eastern Europeans out there. You had Mick Swick out there, and Javier Mendez was out there at the time, AKA's head coach. I liked it because it's very wrestling.
Yeah, of course they are.
Sort of like based and what have you. I mean, yeah, it was hard training. I mean, the first session out there, I went there like to the pro fighters training, and I did get beasted a bit, to be honest with you.
You'd expect.
Yeah, I suppose it's like the new person coming in and what have you. So they did put it on me quite a bit, but then it was literally, I went back the next day and they're like completely different people.
Oh, right.
They're like great friends with you. It's
just
like,
really testing.
It's like maybe you just had to earn that little bit of respect, and then if you come back the next day, they're like, oh, great, and what have you.
Oh, cool.
And then, yeah, it was brilliant. So, yeah, great training out there.
Yeah, I imagine. And did you meet any big names and stuff? Because obviously they've got some huge names out there now. But when were you out there? What's
that? Oh Christ, that was 2014. Yeah, probably none that, other than the coaches.
Yeah, I was going to say Javier's a big name in himself.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, a couple of the fighters you probably wouldn't have heard of. One went on to. A Hispanic guy, he went on to compete in like the Tough House. He got a UFC contract.
Oh, cool.
I forget his name now, sorry. And then, yeah, there's a few others I still follow on like Instagram and whatever now that have gone on and had like spells in like Bellator and a few other of the big organisations.
Well, they are such a big competitive gym. They must.
Of course, yeah.
And did you take anything away from that in particular that sort of changed the way you were approaching things?
I think even more so from there. I like after coming back there I already knew, but knew the importance of like the wrestling side of things, because they were very, their style was very wrestling heavy sort of thing.
Yeah, of course.
And then that's sort of when I come back, started looking for a couple of like specific wrestling coaches, and then trained with a couple of very like high level wrestling coaches as well, which definitely helped develop my game, and still that I think has helped me now, because even like the no-gi game, I think is becoming very important, the wrestling side.
Yeah, I think so. You've definitely got to have that wrestling element to it.
Yeah, and I think I still think there'll be that sort of like it's almost like the next stage of grappling, where like it's been very leg lock dominated for several years now. I think the next stage is going to be like very wrestling dominated.
Yeah,
really, I think. Yeah.
Time to put the grind in on the wrestling for me.
I honestly think so. Yeah,
get ahead of the curve.
So, that's why even like here, every session we work wrestling. I know a lot of jiu-jitsu clubs you go to, and 9 times out of 10, the training sessions don't involve any sort of stand-up sort of thing. And when it comes to sparring, they start on their knees or on their arse on the floor. Where here, I always encourage people to go from standing.
Great, okay.
And I think there's a few of the guys like Sam Jackson, who competed last night and has competed on recent tournaments. He's just dominated the wrestling side of things and just won matches on wrestling and taking people down.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I guess, because you are right. A lot of jiu-jitsu places won't start you standing. You don't get that much opportunity to kind of practice that.
That's right, yeah.
So it's definitely worth having. And I remember when I did the MMA through the old gym a few years back, there were a couple of your guys were there as well. And they were wicked for the stand-up and the wrestling and the grappling. And it really threw, I was still very new to it as well, but it was really... It was a big problem for me. It was pissing me off.
I understand, definitely, if you're a striker and you get taken down, you're really pissed off. Of course, becomes very frustrating. Yeah.
But no, it is good. And so, did that come from again? Obviously, your background there, fairly wrestling heavy. Did you work specifically on stand-up wrestling as well as sort of the wrestling translating to the ground? Because there is a difference there, isn't there?
Yeah. Certainly both. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I had for a long time a wrestling coach called Luba, who's moved up north to Lincoln, who's definitely by far one of the best grapplers I've ever grappled with. I had him down when we were at the old place. He come down and did a seminar there.
Right.
But when you try and wrestle or grapple with someone like him, you like realise the levels.
Yeah.
And he's not like a huge guy. He's probably like 75 kilos, 5'8", and what have you.
Yeah.
But he's smashing 99% of people, sort of thing.
Nice.
The people that are trained with him, he's highly respected. I know for many years he was Roger Gracie's wrestling coach.
Ah, okay.
So it shows, if Roger Gracie's using him as wrestling coach, he's got to be.
It's got to have something to him.
He was good, yeah. He was extremely good, yeah. Unfortunately, like I said, he's moved up north now, which I was gutted about because he was, something special, really, to be honest with you.
And what sort of wrestling style was he? Was he a pure wrestler, or was he a bit of everything?
He was a pure wrestler, like freestyle, but he was good in every area. And because obviously training and coaching at Roger Gracie's, his ground game was, he would hang with any good BJJ black belt easily, sort of thing.
Yeah, of course.
His ground game was amazing, and it was different. It's hard to even describe how it was different. He'd just do very unorthodox techniques that were just extremely painful. It was more of like a pain and pressure thing.
Right, okay.
And that's what he'd say. It's like pain and pressure make people break them mentally.
Right, okay.
Make them quit in their mind. If you can break them mentally, then they're ready to tap, sort of thing.
Right, yeah.
And you see it with, like, in the UFC, people like Khabib. And
absolutely.
Just takes people down and just smashes them, really.
Yeah.
He's not looking for an early submission. He just, like, punishes them for over 3 or 5 rounds, doesn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't bother him. He's just doing his thing.
It's brutal, yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty savage.
Yeah.
And did you say you'd competed in wrestling as well?
I've done a couple of freestyle wrestling competitions when they did it up in Slough. Yeah. Where you have like several matches in the day. Okay. Won a couple, lost several. I think I was probably the only not really white English person there.
Yeah.
They're all like Eastern European or Asian and what have you.
Well, I was going to say, we don't have a big like wrestling culture here.
No, again, I just wanted to like test myself. I didn't go, I had no one with me on the day. I just signed up to it, went to it on the day. Yeah, had no coach with me or anything. And I just thought, fuck it, I'll just go and give it a go and what have you. Yeah, because again, it's just another good experience, whatever.
Yeah, that's it.
All adds to you, I think, yeah.
And do you think that kind of approach of taking a broad experience and just like, fuck it, have a go at everything, do you think that's helped you in general across the board rather than like some people specialise? Yeah,
no, I do. And I think it helps with coaching and just, I don't think it's just like leading by example. You know what I mean? I mean, I've probably obviously over the years got just in all the disciplines got just as many losses as I have wins, but it's just all part and parcel of it.
Yeah.
I think you're very fortunate if you do a martial art and you don't have many losses along the way. If you know what I mean? You mean, even if whatever, I mean, a lot of grapplers, obviously, because you've got to work your way up, most of them have had, a lot of losses on the way up, sort of thing.
Yeah, you've got to.
I don't think it's like, I suppose, maybe boxing might be the only one really what's left now where some people can have like slightly protected records.
Sure, okay.
They got built up slowly, sort of thing, didn't they? I think other things like Thai, probably grappling, it's not so much of they protect your record and build you up. It's like, this is who you got to fight, you got to go and fight.
It's just pretty standard.
But I think boxing's more brutal like that. It's like you get 1 or 2 losses and you're back down. You got to build yourself all the way up, and
right.
At high level, you get 1 or 2 losses and you're right down the pecking order again.
Yeah, I bet. And were you pro boxing as well?
No, just amateur.
Amateur boxing,
amateur and white collar, boxing. Yeah.
Is that the same in terms of like them building you up and stuff like that? Is it still like a big promotional thing where?
It's still big promotional and what have you, but not really building you up. It's just, I mean, most of them, to be fair, were pretty even. It's going on like how long you've done it and your record and what have you, and then match up fairly even. I wouldn't say I've ever had a boxing match where it's been really, it hasn't been matched correctly or anything like that. Yeah, I'm sure there's probably shows that do again.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's always.
You're always going to get it. I think at the end of the day, a lot of these shows run it as a business, didn't they?
Yeah.
And so some, if they've got a big ticket seller, then they'll look to bring in a bum for them to fight.
Yeah.
Knowing that they'll win, and then they'll come
back.
Well,
they've got their boy that's doing whatever, or from their gym or whatever. Yeah, I suppose there's always that underlying element, but so it's part, like you say, it's part and parcel of the whole show, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Fair enough. And I guess going back to the grappling thing and the grappling records, that's quite an interesting one, because when you first start, everyone's like a nobody when you start competing, right? So you always have to go and do the like tournaments where you've got you know, round robins or knockout style or whatever, where you have 3, 4, 8 matches, whatever it is, in a day.
Yeah.
At what point do you then? I don't know about your background on this as well. Have you done much of the kind of super fight styles?
Yeah, I've done a couple, and that's what I suppose that's becoming more popular now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And like you said, with like the One Championship, or even like I said last night, Fusion, which is predominantly an MMA show, but then they're mixing it all now. So grappling bouts, there's some boxing bouts, some K1 bouts on there. And
I didn't even realise they did that.
Yeah. So some of the guys like pushing them to do these now as well. Just again, I think it's a good experience for them. It gets their name out there. It's good publicity for them and the club.
Yeah.
I think it is. Yeah, and it's just, I think it's just, I wouldn't say it's like a higher level to compete at, but it's again, it's like dealing with the environment. Like it's slightly different when they go to. Obviously, it's nerve-wracking when you go to a competition and what have you. But then, like last night, if they're going out, they're grappling in a cage and they've got several hundred people watching them, and it's being streamed online on MMA TV and what have you. It all adds to it a bit.
Yeah, it's a show now rather than just you go rolling around on some mats with other people on 6 other mats.
And they got all the big music and the lights and everything when they come out.
Yeah, you got to do the walkout.
Yeah.
How did you always find the walkout? Did you enjoy that or hate that? Because that tends to be one of two ways.
Yeah, no, I didn't like it. I just keep my head down like that, and I wouldn't look at anyone. Because I think if I'd start looking around and I'd catch someone's eye or something, if like a family, friend, my wife or whatever, and then as soon as you catch their eye, it like sets your emotions going, and then your heart rate starts racing. Yeah. So I always like, when I first got into MMA, I used to love like Fedor Emelianenko. Yeah. And he was so like, what do you call it, like a stone face sort of thing. You know, he wouldn't look at his opponent, he'd like stare down, no expression on his face sort of thing like that. And I was a bit like that. I didn't like looking around, so I'd like walk out with my head down sort of thing, just try and ignore everything that's around me sort of thing.
Yeah, that must be hard as well. I just hate the whole.
I suppose it depends on what type of person you are as well. If you're like making an extrovert, then you come out fucking dancing and all that sort of thing, like some people do.
Yeah. People get well into it.
Yeah, but I could never do that. I feel like a dick if I did something, especially if you go out and then you get knocked out or you lose. Yeah, it looks stupid, isn't it?
That's the worst.
You will, yeah. So I'd just be like music on, head down, walk out.
Fair enough.
Yeah, very sort of business-like.
Business, that's what I like. You come out, get the job done. That's like you say, no embarrassment, win or lose, you're right. Whatever, crack on.
Yep, that's it.
Did you always have like a go-to walkout song as well? Is that something you bothered thinking about much?
No, change it. Everything from like hard rock to like Motown.
Nice.
Then R&B, sort of real mix sort of thing. Yeah. To be honest with you, yeah.
What would make you pick like a certain song or like one thing over the other?
I think sometimes if songs remind you of like a happy time or something like that. Okay. That's why I'd end up the last few times like having sort of like Motown sort of music sort of thing. Right. Because it would just like remind me of certain times in my life and, just enjoying yourself and being happy and what have you sort of thing. And it was just more of a relaxing music to come out to rather than something like really heavy and hard. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was just more sort of like fun and relaxing, and the crowd would quite like it. It was sort of like a song that most people would know sort of thing. And is that something that's quite important for you? Is it about that relaxed state of mind when you're coming out? Yeah, like the walkout song obviously is quite a psychological thing. Yeah, definitely to be relaxed, yeah. 100%, I think that's so important, yeah. And again, I think that takes time because the first few fights, you try and be relaxed. Nothing relaxing about it. Yeah, you try and be relaxed, but as soon as you go to fight, it all fucking goes out the window. And you're like, and you start tensing up, didn't you? Yeah. So, I mean, that certainly takes time as well, yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's fair enough. I mean, yeah, I've always wondered with walkout songs and music and stuff like that, because there is that show element. It's like, what do you think about? Do you think about like the crowd? Like, are you trying to get the crowd on side? Are you trying to get yourself hyped up? Are you trying to get yourself mellowed out?
Yeah.
I guess that's fairly individual as well.
Yeah. Something, like I say, to chill me out and something that the crowd will like, sort of thing. Yeah. So I suppose get them on your side a little bit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, nothing too hard or heavy, sort of thing. Anything like that sets the adrenaline going, gets your heart rate pounding, and that's what I'm trying to avoid.
Fair enough. Yeah, to keep it focused, save it for the actual fight. Well, that's awesome. I really appreciate your time. First of all, then, if we wrap up with where can people find you? Where's the best place? Because, like you say, open door policy. So let's get some people down.
Yeah, definitely open door policy down here, Monkey Muay Thai, Market Street, Maidenhead. We've got kids and adult classes, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Anyone's welcome anytime. If you book online or just turn up. Good competitive team, no dickheads or anything like that. If you like no-gi, you like wrestling, come down, even if it's just for the odd session. If you're a member at a different club and you want somewhere else to train, different people to spar with, come down. Also, hopefully looking to attract more females down the line. I've had a few females come in, do really well, but then they've had to move away. So we've lost them. I think it's such a good martial art for females.
Yeah, definitely. So, and some of the women grapplers at the moment are
so good.
They'll smash most of the boys.
We had a lady pop in the other week who's doing one of the ultra MMA.
Yeah.
I think the women pick it up so quickly because men try and utilise their strength.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of the time, where women, especially women, if they're coming up against men, even just in training, they realise they're not going to be able to overpower them, so they have to be like dead on point with technique.
Right, yeah, you got to be a bit smarter about it.
Yeah, and I think so because of that, they become either technically better or they pick it up quicker.
Sure.
Us men still try to use that bit of power and fucking muscle this and what have you.
Yeah, I guess, and you can almost get away with it a bit.
For a bit, if you've got weight or strength over them, sort of thing. But then again, like I say, as the levels go up, it's not, it doesn't really help.
Much.
Yeah, no. Anyone wants to come down, please do join in. You can find me on Facebook under my name, Keith Ellis, or Windsor and Maidenhead Grappling Submission. No, start again. Windsor and Maidenhead Submission Grappling, and also on Instagram under the same name and TikTok a bit for now.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll put all of the links as well in the description for all of the episodes as well, so people can find you. But I really appreciate your time, Keith.
No Great conversation.
Nice to see you again, mate.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed that. Keith is a super experienced guy, super knowledgeable. Hopefully you gained a lot from that, a lot of useful insights there. I've put all of the links to Keith's social media and things in the description, so please do show him some support. Go down and follow him. If you are in the area, go and check out a trial class in his grappling class. Really welcoming, really good environment, definitely worth doing. Until the next time, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, share it around with another martial artist, and I will see you on the next one.